Our story today is about the motivation and courage of the person who is running for political office against what appears to be insurmountable odds in the upcoming 2024 election. My name is Jim Connor. Welcome to Game Changers Silicon Valley. My guest in this topic is Anna Cheng Kramer, a candidate for California's 15th Congressional District, which includes San Mateo County. Anna, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for having me.
Let's start. You've got a very interesting background, originally from Taiwan, and you really made a life for yourself here in the United States. Can you give us a little background of how this occurred, or how it took place?
Sure. I came from Taiwan primarily for college and stayed on because I fell in love with this country. I love the freedoms and the liberties of this great nation. I became a citizen and became a Republican right after the time that I could vote. So loved Ronald Reagan and just got involved with everything that was great in this country.
Now, you built a business in real estate, I believe, correct?
Yes, I started in a syndication firm with real estate limited partnerships, and I started with investor communications and advanced into a senior VP role, and then went into institutional real estate, managing portfolios. At one point, managed a portfolio for CalSTRS of institutional real estate.
So this is the buying and selling of properties management also?
I was primarily in portfolio management at that time, so it was really investments and looking at what to buy and what kind of rate of return we can get for the large institutional funds.
I'm sure they gave you a great financial analysis background.
Oh, yes.
Is that your degree, by the way, financial?
I have an MBA in finance from Santa Clara.
So how did it come about that you decided to, shall we say, turn your interest to the political world?
Well, I've always actually been interested in local politics because in Taiwan, you never had an opportunity to get involved in politics. So early in my, 30s, I joined the North Ferry Oaks Council because that's where I lived, and it's an unincorporated area of San Mateo County, and became the chairwoman. And it's kind of like a small city in itself. So I was like a mayor of an unincorporated area that reported to the Board of Supervisors. And then later when I moved to San Carlos, then I joined the Economic Advisory Council. It was really interesting from a perspective of local involvement and that you could have a voice. And I'd never had that experience in Taiwan. When I grew up, it was a dictatorship. So it was fascinating how government worked, and I learned a lot, and I enjoyed it. But today's local government is very different from the time that I was involved.
Well, we're going to talk about that. So one of your top issues is safety, public safety, I guess. And to give me a sense of how you define that.
Oh, public safety is, do people feel safe on the streets? Today we don't. Public safety today is just in shambles. We have rampant crime, we have open air drug markets, and our law enforcement is declining. I looked at the stats, and compared to, we are at the lowest level of law enforcement since 1991. And the decline since the peak of 2008 is in the double digits. That's very scary to me. I looked at San Mateo County, it's somewhere between 20 to 25%. It's a smaller county, but if you look at San Francisco, San Jose, they're all double digits. And so when you have a lower, and it takes about 2 years from recruitment to training to have a patrol officer on the street, and it's about 4 to 5 years to have a very well-trained and comfortable patrol officer.
So now, a lot of this comes, people say, from Prop 47, lowering the barriers, changing what is now, what used to be a felony to a misdemeanor and so on like that. This has had a disaster, and today we've had some other guests, we're all talking about it. So we don't see anything, at least I don't see anything on the horizon that's going to address this, which is unfortunate. We do live in a state where one party, they have a supermajority. Again, that could be part of the problem. But I'm not sure why the Sacramento legislature is not addressing this. Do you have any insights? I have to ask you that.
Well, what happens in the Democratic Party is it's one voice. And somehow there's this invisible dominant party line, and everybody speaks the party line. It's almost they have a script every day. Yes, we're fighting for democracy, or this is not right. And I think the party line is criminal justice reform. And earlier it was the defund the police movement. Now they're not saying, no, we never said that we're defunding the police. But I think there's a whole movement, and I don't know who's behind it, is to destroy our country. And not to have public safety is destroying the basic fabric of our nation. And so I don't think there's political will because whoever's controlling the Democrat Party is not pushing it. There are some voices speaking up for some amendments to, Prop 47. There was an effort of Prop 20, but that was more, I think, a conservative movement. It didn't get any traction. I hope that will change. And if the voices get louder, We will see change.
Well, I mean, we all vote.
Yes.
We all vote.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, it's not a Republican issue. Public safety is a nonpartisan issue. We should all be cognizant of that. And
when I look at the things that go on in Los Angeles on the news, San Francisco, Chicago, New York, I go, well, everybody voted for these people, so what are you complaining about? I hate to say it that way. And if you don't like it, make it known and change your vote. Change your vote. Do a recall if you have to. You're running for a congressional district, right?
Yes.
So that takes you into the area of country safety or country security, border particularly, and so on. I'm sure you have a perspective. I'll ask you what that is.
Oh, my gosh. Immigration. Well, you know, I immigrated this country legally. It took me 8 years to get in.
And right now, this massive import, I don't see it benefits anybody.
It benefits the drug cartels, that's for sure. The fact of the fiscal impact's very scary. I mean, we are subsidizing all of the transportation coming in, and then the health care in a time of deficit. California's still subsidizing health care to the immigrants. And I'm not saying all immigrants are illegal, but this is really lawlessness, and it's a culture of lawlessness that we're promoting when we allow this type of thing to happen.
Well, that's a good point. I do want to ask you something a little outside, just my personal interest or my personal opinion. Let's say 10 years ago, and smoking was no longer acceptable. I mean, you see it on product placement in the movies, but no one really smokes anymore.
That's right.
Between Hollywood and the media and a few other people, a lot of social pressure to say smoking's not good. I'm not sure why we can't apply the same campaign to drug usage, especially fentanyl type things. And I just find it kind of unfortunate that right now that our society value system, called cultural leaders, don't say, look what's going on. People are dying all the time by taking a little pill they didn't know what it was. Do you have an opinion?
It's very sad. I think I totally agree with you. And even the laws are changed where we can't mandate drug treatment. I mean, that to me is very heartless. When people are hurting and dying on the street, take them off the street and give them drug treatment. Even if they don't want it, at least clean them up so they could think clearly, and then let them decide. So many of the NGOs, what they're saying is, oh, no, you're not helping them. And it seems to be coming out from a sense of compassion. But it's really, the results are not compassionate at all.
We had Ted Stroll on 2 years ago. He ran for assembly, I believe. And he talked about this CARES Act that the state of California has passed. He goes, it's great. It lets a family forcibly, or if you will, against the person's will, say, I'm the family member. We're going to take them off the street, get them a treatment. But it never got funded. So it sat there on the shelf as a law without funding. And this is one of the problems he identified.
Well, here's fiscal accountability. I mean, when we passed Prop 47, the savings from letting all the misdemeanors, criminals out, it was supposed to go into safe schools and then drug treatments and safe for victims. Where did that money go? It was estimated to be $160 million. There's no accountability. And we're still, mental health is still an issue. And we're still passing, Newsom wants a bond of $2 billion. There is no accountability of fiscal spending, and that's where we need to have more transparency.
There's another party here that's out of control fiscal spending in Congress, $33 trillion.
Our interest on the debt is $1 trillion.
It's $1 trillion, yeah.
It's very scary.
That's a lot of money.
It totally is, and we cannot continue that kind of spending. I mean, basically, we're mortgaging our future generations. Yeah. It's the kids that are going to have to bear that burden.
So prosperity is another big theme with your campaign. You've got some subdivisions of prosperity. I'll let you explain that.
For sure that we cannot keep spending the way, because I'm a capitalist. I majored in economics, so I'm totally for the free market, supply and demand. And you cannot have government spending because government doesn't create jobs. It's the businesses that create jobs and build the tax revenues. Government spends the tax revenue. So when you have government coming into the business sector, you're basically taking away jobs. And when they impose legislation like minimum wage, you're setting artificial thresholds, and you actually reduce the number of businesses that can operate. You should let the free market, you look at Hong Kong, Taiwan, they were all free market systems that thrived, and they're low taxes, and that's what makes prosperity. Of course, we have to have safety, public safety, and national security. People can't build businesses when there's uncertainty. And so those are all elements of prosperity.
And what about education then? That's a big theme too.
Very critical. To have a a prosperous economy, you have to have an educated workforce. And education, a good education is the foundation of economic prosperity for individuals. The long-term trend is not good for our education. And we need to get back to the basics and stop this social engineering and social issues. One other thing about education I want to talk about is, there's an attack on Prop 209. This is the California Civil Rights Act, and it ensures that public education institutions cannot discriminate based on race. Well, that's been in our Constitution, California Constitution. And then up comes Prop 16, and all of the Democrats said, yes, on 16, we have to identify by race and hire by race and have education by race. That is racism. In my book, that is total racism, and I'm totally against it. And unfortunately, did not get passed. But now there's the ACA 7 that's being attacked, and they want to say under certain circumstances we can hire or based on race.
Let me ask you a personal question. I do want to talk about freedom, but have you felt discrimination yourself in your years here in the United States?
Maybe once. I really can't say I even remember. And people have asked me, people that are minorities, why don't you even experience racism? And I think sometimes racism is it's inherently something in your consciousness if you're born in a country that says, oh, racism exists. Because I was born in Taiwan where the predominant race was Asian. So I was not in the minority race. So I think if you are in the minority race, you might be more aware of the subtleties. Are there racism? And I just have not experienced it. I love this country. Now, when I did first come, I went to New York City, and there was some racism. I did experience that, not personally, but I saw that. And I saw that as basically economics, because you saw the Chinatown Chinese were poor, and the Wall Street was next door, and you had the brokers, the traders that made, six figures plus, and they looked down on the Chinese that were poor. So that was an experience that I had. It's like, oh, interesting. I've never seen racism because I never experienced it in Taiwan. And now with the economic advancement of China, I don't see that at all. I mean, everybody wants Chinese now. You go to Italy and they all have Chinese saleswomen in every, designer store.
Yeah. So how broad is your picture of freedom?
Well, what I think freedom is being threatened today. After COVID, I think we saw a lot of threats on our freedom. Churches were closed. That's First Amendment rights. You were mandated the jab. That's medical freedom. You lost that. So, and then you see censorship. I have been censored on YouTube. Yes.
You have been censored?
Yes. When I spoke about election fraud, because I went to Las Vegas and I actually signed affidavits of election fraud. So I was talking about that, and that was immediately censored on YouTube. And then I recently had an interview with Dr. Sebastian Gorka. I cannot show it on YouTube. Yeah, he's on Rumble, though. So that, fortunately, we have other outlets. And what's happening is big business and big tech is working together. I mean, look at the Hunter Biden story. And, oh, that was not Hunter Biden's laptop. Now everybody said, it is the laptop. So
you're running in Congressional District 15. It's kind of known as a Democratic stronghold.
Yes.
Jackie Spear had that for years.
Yes.
But you have a strong connection to the community, and it's got, I think, 48%, you said, of minority groups?
Yes, there's 26%. According at least to 2020 statistics, 26% of this district is Asian. And then the other portion was 21% was Hispanic, and then 2% African American. So I've reached out to both Hispanic groups and Asian groups, and they've really welcomed me with open arms. They're happy to hear me, and I've just felt very welcome. Hispanics share very common values as Asians. God, country, family, and so there's common values there.
I read some statistics that Asians don't vote very often, or not as much as you would think, and that's part of your job to go get them to vote, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I think that's in the culture where, politics is deadly. I mean, you get killed.
You're right.
Yeah.
So let's let our audience know how to follow up with you, make a donation, whatever they would like to do. If they want to work on your campaign, please let
That'd be
our
great.
audience
Yeah,
know.
my website is ackramerforcongress.org, and it's FOR. So AC Kramer with a K for FOR Congress.org.
Well, Anna,
Thank
you've
you.
been delightful.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed the conversation with you. You got such great energy. You've come from as an immigrant background. You worked your way through. I think it's time for people who have your background to go to Washington.
We need some business-oriented people in Washington. Thank you, Jim, for this opportunity.
Well, thank you. I want to wish you every success going forward.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us in this episode. If you gain insights from this conversation, you can share this show with your network and ask them to subscribe. You can view all shows at our website, gamechangers.tv, as well as the podcast at Game Changers Silicon Valley. We look forward to your continued interest in upcoming shows.